Right now, you're wearing clothes. You didn't think twice about it this morning. You just got dressed. But the real answer for why your species does this at all is far stranger than you think. It has almost nothing to do with staying warm. Strip away the fashion, the fabric, the labels. Go back further than any tailor, any loom, any woven thread. Somewhere in the deep past, a naked, hairless ape made a decision that changed the entire trajectory of the human story. And it wasn't shivering that pushed them there. It was something living on their skin. Around 2 million years ago, your ancestors lost most of their body hair. This wasn't an accident. Running down prey across the hot African savanna requires sweating, and thick fur traps heat like a blanket. So evolution stripped it away. Bare skin, dense with sweat glands, became your ancestors' cooling system. It made them some of the best long-distance runners on the planet. But bare skin creates a new problem. Under the equatorial sun, exposed skin burns. So the body compensated again. It darkened. Melanin thickened across the skin like natural sunscreen, protecting against ultraviolet damage in a climate where the sun never let up. For over 1 million years, this worked perfectly. Dark skin, no fur, built for heat and motion. Nothing about that design needed clothing.
Then, humans started moving. As populations pushed north into colder latitudes, into Europe, into Central Asia, the old design became a liability. Bare, dark skin in low sunlight climates struggles to produce enough vitamin D, and bare skin with no fur in freezing temperatures is a death sentence. Something had to change. But biology is slow. Evolution doesn't rush. So instead of waiting millennia for new fur to grow back, humans did something no other primate had done. They took the skins of other animals and put them on their own bodies. This is where it gets interesting, because for decades, scientists had almost no way to prove exactly when this happened. Cloth and hide don't survive hundreds of thousands of years. They rot, they decompose, they vanish from the archaeological record entirely. So how do you date the invention of something that leaves no trace? The answer came from something you'd never expect: lice. In 2003, biologist Mark Stoneking led a genetic study on human lice.
And what he found rewrote the timeline of human clothing. There are two kinds of lice that live on the human body: head lice, which cling to hair, and body lice, which live in clothing and only travel to skin to feed. Body lice couldn't have existed before there was something to live in. So Stoneking's team compared the DNA of both species to figure out when they diverged from a common ancestor. The genetic clock pointed to somewhere around 170,000 years ago. That's when body lice split off and evolved to live in fabric instead of hair. Which means that's roughly when clothing was invented. Think about that number for a moment. 170,000 years. That's not a guess from a museum placard. That's DNA, still living on human bodies today, quietly recording the moment your ancestors first wrapped an animal hide around themselves and changed what it meant to be human. But here's the twist almost nobody expects. Clothing didn't spread because of the cold alone. Archaeologist Ian Gilligan has spent years studying this exact question, and his research points to something more layered. Early hominins in cold regions could survive short, moderate chills without clothing. Human bodies can adapt to a surprising amount of discomfort. What clothing actually did was open up entirely new territory. It let people migrate into places that would have been unlivable otherwise. Northern Europe, the Asian steppe, eventually the door to the Americas across the frozen land bridge.
Clothing wasn't just insulation. It was a technology of expansion. And once it existed, it didn't stay simple for long. The earliest garments were almost certainly just draped hides, tied with sinew or plant fiber. But somewhere between 40,000 and 30,000 years ago, something changed again. Archaeologists have found eyed sewing needles carved from bone at sites in Siberia and China, dating to this period. A needle means something enormous.
It means clothing wasn't just wrapped anymore. It was
fitted, shaped, tailored to the body. Tailored clothing traps warmth far more efficiently than a loose hide ever could. And researchers believe this innovation is part of what allowed modern humans to survive the brutal cold of the last ice age, while pushing into regions Neanderthals had occupied for hundreds of thousands of years without ever developing the same technology. That's worth sitting with. Neanderthals lived in Ice Age Europe far longer than modern humans did. They were strong, cold-adapted, and deeply familiar with harsh winters. But there's little evidence they created fitted, sewn clothing the way modern humans eventually did. Some researchers argue this gap in technology may have been one of many small disadvantages that added up over time. A needle and thread. One of the quiet reasons your ancestors are still here, and theirs are not. So clothing wasn't born from vanity. It wasn't born from shame or fashion or anything close to what drives your closet today. It was born from a hairless ape's need to survive somewhere its own skin could no longer protect it. And once that need was solved, something unexpected happened. Clothing stopped being just protection and started becoming meaning. Anthropologists have found evidence that some of the earliest garments were dyed, decorated with shell beads, or marked with pigment. Even tens of thousands of years ago, clothing was already doing double duty. It kept people alive, and it told other people who they were. Status, group identity, belonging. The two purposes have never fully separated since. Which brings us back to you, this morning, standing in front of your closet. You probably didn't think about survival when you chose that shirt. You thought about how it looked, how it felt, what it said about you before you said a single word. But underneath every one of those choices is the same ancient instinct that pushed a hairless, sun-adapted ape into freezing, unfamiliar land 170,000 years ago. The need to extend your body's abilities beyond what evolution alone gave you. Every jacket zipped against the wind. Every layer added before stepping outside. Every choice of fabric and color and fit. It's not just style. It's a habit older than language itself, passed down not through memory, but through lice DNA, sewing needles buried in permafrost, and a body that never quite finished adapting to the cold. You're not just wearing clothes right now. You're still doing what your ancestors did to survive a world their own skin couldn't handle alone.